A good steakhouse should make the entire dining experience feel effortless and fun. There's nothing worse than sitting down at a steakhouse only to leave feeling disappointed or worse, upset because of a bad experience. Keep an eye out for these red flags. When you walk into a reputable, top-notch steakhouse, you can usually see and smell just how clean it is. The windows sparkle, your table is free and clear of spills and stains, the bar is not sticky. But if you walk into a restaurant and the surfaces look or feel grimy, you might want to turn back around and head somewhere else. Restaurants should be cleaning and sanitizing surfaces nearly constantly when they're open for business. Now, what's this about bathrooms? Look at it this way. The bathroom is one of the few places that members of the public actually see when they visit any restaurant. If this very public-facing spot is gross or not very well maintained, just think of the spots you're not seeing. The kitchen, behind the bar, and the stockroom, for example. If the restaurant staff isn't willing or doesn't have time to clean the bathrooms, they're probably not doing a great job cleaning in other places either. It's gross to think about, but likely true. Restaurant cleanliness and hygiene, across the board throughout the entire restaurant, are the keys to making sure germs, bacteria, and other nasty hitchhikers don't hop aboard your plate of food or your cocktail, then take up residence in your stomach. If you're paying an arm and a leg for a nice meal at a steakhouse, your server should be a true professional who is able to answer any questions you might have. If you're met with a dumbfounded stare or, worse, a shrug and an I don't know when you ask a question about the menu, it's time to hightail it out of there.
What does steak mean?
Pardon?
What does steak mean?
This is steak.
At a high-quality steakhouse, your server should basically be your tour guide, talking you through the entire evening without being overbearing. If you truly don't understand how a dish is prepared or you've never heard of an ingredient before, your server should easily be able to fill you in without being judgmental. It's his or her job. At the very least, a wait person should politely and graciously acknowledge a gap in his or her knowledge, then find someone else who can answer your question. Their top priority should be keeping you, the customer, happy and satisfied. Look, we get it. Nobody and no steakhouse is perfect. Accidents happen. Mistakes make it to your table. Waiters accidentally say the wrong thing, chefs get busy, busboys can't keep up, bartenders misunderstand your order. But where a restaurant really has a chance to shine is how they react to those mistakes. Do they double down and get defensive? Or do they calmly and clearly apologize for what went wrong, then outline a path forward for how they plan to improve? Do they offer to comp your meal or at least part of your meal? Give you a gift card for your troubles? You can tell a lot about a restaurant by how they respond to mix-ups and issues. If something has gone wrong and the manager refuses to make things right, it's probably time to find a new steakhouse. The best restaurant owners understand that keeping customers happy is one of the most important elements for success. Even little touches, such as giving you a free drink and some appetizers to munch on while you wait, can go a long way in the restaurant business. In reality, a restaurant is only as good as its reputation, after all. Traditional steakhouse sides haven't changed much over the years. Baked potato, house or Caesar salad, French onion soup, maybe some green beans here and there, and some people might be fine with that. As the saying goes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But it doesn't have to be this way. One of the marks of a good steakhouse is an innovative chef who's putting his or her unique spin on the menu. Sure, you'll find those classic steakhouse sides on the menu, but you'll also have the option of trying something new and exciting. Side dishes don't have to be an afterthought, even though you probably came for the steak. These days, farmers love partnering with restaurants and providing just picked vegetables from the farm, so why settle for boring and bland sides when you could be eating something that truly enhances your steak? There is nothing more frustrating than walking into a steakhouse starving, then waiting and waiting for a server to stop by your table to take your order. It doesn't happen all that often, but when it does, it's likely an indication that you're not at a very good restaurant. Why? Because keeping diners happy is the #1 job of restaurant servers, bartenders, hosts, and managers. If you're kept waiting at your table for what feels like an eternity, it likely means there was a breakdown in communication between the host who seated you and the waitstaff responsible for your table. Even worse, a waiter who walks by your full table multiple times and doesn't even make eye contact, or one that's just sort of hanging out, not doing anything but ignoring you. If your server is oblivious to a table full of people, what else might he or she be overlooking or forgetting? It's just bad news. If you've been waiting for your drinks or food for an inordinately long time, it's perfectly fine to stand up, walk over to the bar, pay for what you've already ordered, and boogie. And maybe ask to speak to the manager on your way out the door. After your server takes your drink order, brings over a basket of bread, and drops off any appetizers your table ordered, they'll next ask for your main course selection. If you order a steak, you're guaranteed to hear some variation of, "And how would you like that prepared?"
Prepared? Oh, you mean cooked?
Yes, sir. Cooked is most definitely what I should have said. Do excuse me, please.
But if you say medium rare and your steak comes out well done or vice versa, that's a huge red flag. The steakhouse needs to get a lot of things right in order to be successful, but perhaps more important than anything else is actually cooking up a good steak. Sure, a good steak starts with a good cut of meat, but even a good cut of meat is no good if it's not cooked to order. Any steakhouse chef worth his or her salt can cook your steak exactly how you like it prepared, no more and no less. If your steak comes back all wrong, don't hesitate to send it back, and maybe try a new steakhouse next time.
Wait. Did that waitress listen to a word I said? This steak is medium rare. I asked for it medium.
Any steakhouse worth its salt should have a sommelier on staff, a trained wine expert who can help you decide which glass of wine to pair with your meal. And if they don't have an actual sommelier, at the very least, they should take time to train their waitstaff and bartenders to make wine pairing recommendations. Sommeliers aren't just there to get you to spend more money on your meal. In fact, they go through months and months of rigorous training in order to be eligible for certifications that demonstrate their knowledge and expertise. Having the right wine with your meal can actually enhance the flavors, smells, and textures in your mouth, making it worth every penny you spend. If you're going to order some wine, why not make it count, right? If you're visiting a steakhouse without a sommelier, it's not a total deal breaker. But this may not be the restaurant you take someone you're trying to impress. You can tell a lot about a restaurant by how full the parking lot is or how many tables are full in the dining room or bar. When the steakhouse is full, we tend to assume that means it offers delicious food and great service. When the steakhouse is empty, we assume the opposite, that it's not very good and therefore not worth visiting. There's a reason why diners flock to one steakhouse, crowding the lobby to wait for a table while leaving another steakhouse down the road completely empty. Chances are, the restaurants have earned very different reputations, for better or for worse. This psychological concept is known as social proof, according to Fast Company. When we see a crowded steakhouse compared to an empty one, our brains interpret that as evidence that the steakhouse is clean, offers good value, and turns out delicious food. We like following in the footsteps of others because it gives us more certainty about the choices we're making. It's no secret that restaurants are notorious for oversalting the food they serve. In fact, researchers with the American Heart Association say that eating out is contributing to our overconsumption of salt across the board, at all different types of restaurants serving all different types of cuisines. If you're having dinner at a nice steakhouse, however, you'll want to be mindful of how the food on your plate tastes. A good chef knows that adding just the right amount of salt, not too much and not too little, can make a steak taste savory and delicious without hiding the natural flavors of the meat. Too much salt could be an indication that the cut of meat is not very nice, or that the chef just wasn't paying much attention during the cooking process. Either way, if you leave a restaurant with a dry mouth, you may want to think twice about visiting again.
You see that color? You see how the pepper works, Carlo, huh?
I am afraid, Signor Marco.
Do not be afraid of the pepper.
Spotty glasses or plates with food stuck to them? You should probably walk right out the door. Aside from being just plain gross, dirty utensils could be indicative of way bigger problems. It could be a sign of a broken dishwasher, which means that the restaurant doesn't have money to fix one of its most important appliances, or just didn't even notice that it wasn't getting dishes clean. It may also mean that the restaurant isn't following local health rules, which are put in place to keep diners safe and healthy. Chances are, if you're visiting a steakhouse, you're prepared to indulge and unwind. A few drinks, appetizers, a nice steak, maybe even dessert. But there's nothing worse than sitting down and giving your waiter your drink order, only to be told a few minutes later that the bartender doesn't know how to make your cocktail. This is indicative of untrained, unprofessional, and inexperienced staff at a steakhouse, and it might be time to move along. Any steakhouse worth visiting should have a bartending pro, or several, working behind the bar. Sure, maybe if your drink is so obscure that no one has ever heard of it, that's one thing. But a skilled professional bartender should be able to make just about everything under the sun, or find out how to make it. Steakhouses already sometimes get a bad rap for being outdated and uncool. They're where your parents and grandparents love to eat, but they're not really all that hip for the younger generations. Without a creative chef in the kitchen, the menu items can become bland and predictable. Too heavy, too much salt, not enough vegetables. Another element that can make a steakhouse feel old and tired? The decor. Sure, the food might still be very good, but a large part of the dining experience is the ambience, or the way that the physical space itself makes you feel when you're celebrating an anniversary or special occasion. Fresh, updated decor sends the message that the steakhouse is constantly innovating, and that it's a warm, comfortable place to spend the evening. People eat with their eyes first, so the decor isn't something that a steakhouse should simply ignore. The same goes for outdated uniforms, menus, and other restaurant staples. If it feels blah, maybe just try somewhere else. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more mashed videos about restaurant tips are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.